Yeah, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to our show today. This is going to be 2Forks with your two hosts. I'm eXtine, joined by Lucrative. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty excellent. You know, had a nice little lunch, some leftover soup. Not the collard green and Italian sausage that's long gone, and I cooked for Cooking with eXtine, episode 2. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Yeah, nice. I made another soup though, another chicken stock, and then just kind of pretty straightforward: onions, carrots, celery, potatoes, real stewy. It was delicious.
That sounds awesome. I've hadn't had good soup in a long time, man.
Dang, well, come to Copenhagen.
I made pierogies today, so.
Oh shit.
I made my own pierogies.
Oh
today,
dang, dude. I gotta know more. I gotta know more.
I just did the classic potato and cheese, man. Just
Okay.
my regular
Cool.
dough.
Cool.
Steam those, and then just fry them in butter.
Ooh.
I mean, the dough's obviously a process, but you can sit here and talk all day. But,
There's this store brand. I think it's called Mama T's, and they're like frozen pierogies.
I have no idea.
Yeah, they're actually pretty solid. And for a while in college, I was like doing all the variations. You're like fry them in butter and cover them in cheese sauce. Just deep fry them. Like you can do all sorts of things with pierogies.
They're just like, isn't anything better than the simple, just like fry them with butter and caramelized onions with them, and like it's just it's just perfect.
That's That's pretty much what I feel about it.
Let's keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Sally, right? Other S words thrown around in there. But anyways, it's been a bit since we did our last episode. So there's been a lot of ESEA TF2 action going on in the meantime. And Lucrative, how have things been going for you and the King's Crew lately?
King's Crew is good. We had we hit our rough patch again because we're playing all the really good teams, and we've been steadily getting better, but it kind of sucks because Velocity died, and we felt like they were the other team that we could have beaten. And honestly,
legitimately beaten.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of rough at the bottom of Invite, so we're hoping for a couple more upsets to finish the season. I mean, we played against Froyo last night, and I hate to be the guy that says it, but realistically, we're a huge gap between us. So
yeah.
Our whole goal is we spent the whole game making sure that everyone on their team died at least once. We did these 6-man sack
just to get a beat.
just to make sure that no one got perfect games. But Eric ended up getting a perfect game because he literally was the last one, and then he knew what we were doing, so he didn't even come to the middle.
Wow, what a jerk.
He just did this shit. But more interestingly, outside of Invite, I mean, Invite's pretty crazy at the top right now, but IM is popping off right now. At the top of IM. Holy, it's crazy. The top 5 teams in IM. I've never seen the division so close in the top 5.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you have one or two teams that's either just got a big fat 0 in their loss column or sitting on 1 for just the entire season. So yeah, pretty shocking to see 4 teams with 2 losses at the top. And then, really that means you have 2 teams that are 7-4 and two more teams at 6-4. It's just that's a lot of losses going around.
Honestly, I feel like there's literally 6 teams that could beat each other all given day. Pancake Waffle Rifles up there right now, but I actually don't think. I think that's pretty inflated record. I don't think they're that good. Bombology, Fane Gaming, Dunk Masters, TOK, Excellent Adventures, and HRT. They're all so good.
Yeah,
we scrim them pretty often too. All those teams pretty often. It's just really hard to decipher which team's the best. I really feel like any of these 6 teams could beat each other on any day, honestly.
Yeah, I watched Dunk Masters versus Theory of Knowledge.
Oh my god, the most boring.
Yeah.
That was so bad.
That was pretty nutty. The 1-2 on process.
I don't think I've seen a scoreline that low.
And I think it was halftime, right before halftime, that there was a fatty medic play where he just barely got uber charged, barely hung on to it. You could probably find the clip in the XTV Esports clip section, but yeah, he got some uber saws, held the point, and held the I think it was 1-1 at halftime, right? I don't know. It was
Yeah.
just it was pretty absurd, but you know that's
I started watching the game and I just got hella bored because like TOK like literally could not sack. They just like could not get anything off their sack plays at all.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know what they were doing out there.
It's a tough game, you know, right? And even in ESEA Open, it takes quite a lot of effort to get a team that's going to be able to compete, going to be able to hang with the big boys, and going to be able to stick together, you know, for a long time, right?
TOK is my favorite to win IM, even though they take a couple of losses recently.
Yeah.
I taught stock well.
Yeah, you know, a lot of new faces in IM. Some that have been making their names for a while, but you know, still I haven't been running in their circles. So it's cool to see some of these guys, you know, just even more so making names for themselves.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how IM is. It's exciting for invite too, right? Like,
yeah,
it'll lead into our topic, but it'll be really nice if these teams can stick together and actually transfer into, you know, staying as a team and becoming good invite teams one day.
Yeah. And that is our topic for the day, team building. You know, we like to kind of have fun themes that are kind of crossover between, you know, concepts of the kitchen and concepts of esports and Team Fortress. You know, in the kitchen, it's important that you got a leader in charge that you can follow and trust, right, Lucrative?
That's right.
You know, as well as then that leader, you know, finding, you know, good people that could fill particular roles, can be flexible, can maybe change around, that bring other, you know, aspects to the game. And then also, I guess, how we want to, you know, start this discussion off is also talking about, you know, how people can join a team and even what they should be looking to kind of like get together as, you know, let's say their resume before they even do, you know, start getting on a team.
Yeah. And, I mean, it seems like in the recent years, the most obvious answer.
But you cut out a little bit there. Uh-oh. No, podcast issues. Okay, come on, Luke. You can do it. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even know. Let's see. Okay, we might just go to just a phone call with our boy Lucrative here, just so that we don't lose him. He can hear me, so at least that's progress. And let me just try to leave the call and rejoin it. Excuse me if you guys, nothing controversial there, but hopefully we can get Lucrative back here. In my opinion, you know, on this topic of getting your resume together and getting ready to play, you know, certainly putting hours into the game is the crucial first step. You know, knowing what to expect in terms of, you know, league meta. Oh, I hear you. Yow. Hello. At least we hear you.
Oh my God! Hold up. Why is this happening?
Oh, was it your cat? It looks like you might be coming back.
No, he didn't touch anything. Just
Dang.
like completely randomly stopped out of the blue.
Yeah. Discord's been getting me some weirdness lately, but as has my TF2. But I've sorted out the TF2. I don't know if I've sorted out the Discord.
I don't know. My camera is not working.
Well, you know, you can be a spiraling loading circle, you know, for the rest of the game.
I'm gonna try replugging it in real quick too.
Always a good tactic.
Anyways, I kind of heard what you were saying, but maybe you want to recap quickly.
Yeah, just talking about, you know, players really understanding the fundamentals of kind of the competitive meta. You know, understanding that. Oh, there we go. Nice. You know, understanding that, you know, what some of the expectations are. You know, whatever the format is, right? You know, whether you're jumping into fours, whether you're jumping into a Highlander, Pro-lander, and sixes, or even, you know, ulti duo. Let's just throw that out there, but. You know, you can't join an ulti-duo tournament if you're like, I got 3,000 hours of pub medic, and I've never watched a game of ulti-duo. You know, like, you at least need to have some sort of understanding of the concept of what you're stepping into. And I think that if you bring those things to the table, that, people are pretty welcoming. You just also have to look for an appropriate skill level, right? And saying, hey, I'm looking to get into sixes, or I want to join an ESEA open team. That's actually probably not the first step that you should do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since I started playing, right? And I feel like back when I started playing, it was a lot different. Like the way I got into competitive TF2, and I'll tell the whole story, which is kind of funny. I was part of a pub community when I started the game, and I know pub communities are still kind of a thing, but back then they were like rampant. There was pub communities like everywhere.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about competitive games at all, and I had no idea about competitive TF2 at all. And it was just kind of starting back then because the game just became a thing, right? Like it just came out with the orange box and stuff. And it was funny because I was playing with one of my boys from the pub community, and there's this guy in there. His name was Ravage, and he was an old pro player from way back in the day for one of the best pro teams back then named Makeshift. And my buddy was like, "Oh my God, that's Ravage, man! He's playing in our pub. This is crazy!" And I'm like, "Why is this guy freaking out so much? It's just some guy or whatever." And then he told me all about it, and then basically I was like, "Man, that sounds really cool. Like, we should just make a team with our pub guys or whatever." In fact, that was 8 versus could have way more people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like we were just straight up just joined a league. I had no idea how we were playing. We played Cal. I enjoyed it. And like TWL, we had no idea what we were doing or how to play, and we just like did it." And I feel like you don't do that anymore. I feel like people don't just like join leagues, right? But like there is like the MG mod and DM and stuff to help get your mechanics on par.
Yeah.
But like it's kind of, I was gonna mention actually, it's kind of seems like recently it's actually kind of hard to get into competitive TF2 like right from the get-go. But there is that really awesome like newbie mix drive they do for ESEA.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say as well, kind of sharing my story of how I actually, made that breakthrough as well into the competitive scene. Because I was playing in pubs, but I was interested in the competitive scene, and this was like 2008. And then I started, looking, researching, seeing the casts that were out there. There was Ponage.tv and TGBF.tv back at the time. Yeah.
Popped like a cherry.
Yeah. Shedder's still around, killing it, doing big work. But, saw that stuff and then, started getting into the pickup games, and I think, you mentioned some of the circumstances have changed a little bit. And I think it was Nursey on Twitter pointing out just kind of like how to run in where like people were kind of like bullying somebody on TF2 Center of like, get off, you don't have any comp experience. And it's like, like where is, there's nowhere to go. Like I know I think other people are finding competitive matches, but for me, I haven't found a competitive TF2 match in game in years.
And that type of attitude was absolutely rampant in PUBG as well.
Yeah, and PUBG can be tough, and it can be tough to break through, but at the same time, you do have to kind of just try to persevere and, start trying to make some friends and friends that are willing to pick you, or you see that medic is open and jump in as medic. I would say that medic is probably the easiest to really get started, because if you're playing pugs, maybe on the third rotation, people don't want to play medic, and then you just volunteer, and so there's a lot of opportunity to play the same class, right?
Yeah, it's tough because like medic is like one of those classes. Like, yeah, it's easy to start on, but also it's easily the most scrutinized class.
Yeah,
6 versus 6.
And like, especially with arrows nowadays, right? Too, there's like even more expectations, because it used to be like if you follow these 2 rules, you'll be okay, which is. Like everything else is questionable, but like as long as you follow these 2 things, you're fine.
Follow your own pockets.
Well,
don't drop it.
No, not even that. We're just the rollout, right? And it's just like if the first mid-fight rollout goes okay, then you can deal with any sort of medic, right? But like the 2 that they have to learn is buff the demo and never slow down for anybody, right? Just run as fast as you can to mid. don't, you know, if somebody's like, oh, I gotta fix something, like, don't stand back there and fucking heal them, you know.
Shit, man,
And
I still do that sometimes.
yeah, you're like, that's a rule, you know.
Yo, my bad.
Yeah, you know, but then now there's just like, okay, well, now you get to mid, and now you're supposed to arrow the roamer, you know, who's on the top of snake water waiting for an arrow, and then as soon as you arrow him, one of your scouts is like, arrow me, bro. And then your demo man's like, where's my buff? And then you're like, whoa. And then your pocket's like, you gotta stick next to me, you know, and just this like, like all these things, you know.
It's a nightmare. And like I said, when I played in PugChamp, like, it's the most scrutinized class, but on top of that as well, like, people just are not willing to help. Like, it goes back to kind of our last podcast where we're talking about the elitist mentality.
Yeah.
God damn, man, these TF2 players and their precious pugs. It's so infuriating. Like, how they can literally let one new player like completely ruin a pug or ruin their day practically. They're so fragile. Like, and it's really frustrating to see, right? Because there's people in there that, especially with medics, like the amount of medics, there's so little, right? Like, you want to encourage those people, teach them to be good, and they just do the exact opposite most of the time. Like, I know that's not true for everyone, but I've seen it a lot. I don't even play PUBG anymore. I just hated the experience. So
I feel you in regards to that kind of mentality aspect of that, and that's something that we've talked about a little bit before on this podcast in episode 1 and 2. And I think that you know, that there's this kind of pug mentality that does need to be stronger, of people just being like, you know what, if one guy on my team sucks, I just need to be that much better. You know, I just need to focus on myself. I need to focus on what I can do. And I actually had this TF2 PL, and it is kind of ties into this medic conversation, where, you know, guy doesn't really want to play medic. You know, the draft is going along, and then he's like, okay, you know, it's fine. And, you know, he's doing a fair job, but then I'm on scout. You know, the medic and the soldier are standing on top of a bunch of stickies. The medic's been flashing a bunch of people. I miss my shot on the stickies, and then the soldier dies from the Uber, you know, fading away, and the sticky's detonating, and he just berates this poor medic. And I'm like, yo, bro, you know, like, it happened, you know, like, move on. You can't control whether, you know, what your medic does in this situation. You know, you just need to focus on yourself and growing yourself as a player. And, you know, I offered that he could blame me instead of the medic, because that's really whose fault it was, you know. And instead, he just said that focusing on his own gameplay was the stupidest thing that he's ever heard. And, you know, just like, he's like, oh my God, that advice is so bad, you know. And then it was like, I don't know, I died. And then he, like, you know, kind of tries to bring it up again. I'm like, why should I even take advice from some guy that's going to drop to a scout on the side? You're just like, oh my God, dude, you know. And again, I guess that, again, talks to just, you know, we want to switch this into a team building mentality. But, you know, that's an important philosophy and perspective to take into a pug, to be like, I want to win this, and, you know, I'm just going to, you know, focus on utilizing the teammates that I have in order to win this, you know, not just trying to berate them or just blame them and complain about this game not going our way. You know, like, it's your responsibility as a teammate, even to complete strangers, to try to lift them up, to help them play better. And I think that, you know, what's disappointing about this mentality in pugs is that I feel like people would just be stronger players if they just had that mentality throughout the pugs, you know, of wanting to work with people and wanting to get the win in, and, you know, do what you can with your teammates. And
100% share the knowledge, you know.
Yeah, and you know, if you do join your first team, and then you realize that it's like kind of a bad situation, you know, for whatever reasons, whether, you know, 2 out of the 6 people who are in control of the team are good friends with each other, so that, like, the team level is not quite going to progress in the same way that you might want it to, then you still just need to get what you can out of that experience, you know, take the learning from it. And then if you want a different experience, you want to grow with other people, then move on to another team. You know, anytime that you're playing, you just kind of have to be kind of self-focused, just to make sure that you can be the best teammate you can be.
Yeah, and I would actually like to build off that, since we're going to talk about being a part of a team. And I think I have a lot of experience in this, like, because I've basically led 99% of the teams that I've been part of. I've been the main guy, and I still am now. And I think it's really important. Like when you're starting out, I think when you're starting out, you don't really, unless you're already like friends with the guys, like before you start playing, like you don't really know who you're going to be playing with or who you match up well with and stuff. And everyone's going to be kind of playing for themselves when they're starting out, which is fine, right? Like they're getting their experience, they're figuring out how they like to play and who they like to play with and stuff. And I'm kind of reference back to the MGE workshop where Pure was talking about being an in-game leader, being a team leader. And when you get past that level where you're kind of like just starting out, you really, really, really want to find two guys that you can just have a core with, right? Like be the three guys that you're always a core together, and have two guys that you really trust and you really believe in their play that you can sit there and talk about team decisions with. Like, how do you think the team's going here? Like, how do you think the game's going here? Like, what do you think of this player? You know, two guys that'll help you make decisions, right? And help you like form the core of your team. And I think it is really important. And like a lot of teams do have that now. Like there's a lot of players that do stick together and stuff, which is good. And I think people like in an open level need to understand that concept a little bit more, because like when you're as a core, when you're a member of a core, you're not just improving yourself, you're improving as a core as well. So there's always an aspect of your team that'll be getting better or will be better from the get-go if you join a team as a core or make a team as a core, you know what I mean, that you can keep together. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure, especially in the decision-making aspect of it, because that can be tough in games sometimes to really kind of have a coherent strategy. And when you are bringing in kind of a mix of people or a mix of backgrounds, and people aren't necessarily sure which voices to follow, you know, it's important to have leadership in that regard. And I think a lot of times as well, you know, you do need more than just one leader, you know. There has to be a little bit of leadership and a little bit of support from everybody on the team backing up that leader. And sometimes as well, you know, in terms of communication, I think it's, you know, we should touch on communication as well, because, you know, voice chat is just such a important aspect of the game. Important to make sure that you guys are clicking, that you have a main caller, and that you can have, you know, somebody else that's supporting that main caller. And definitely, as you mentioned, you need to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, and there's like two major forms of communication within a team, right? There's the in-game one, obviously, like when you're playing. And as far as I'm concerned, when you're playing, this like in-game communication, as long as everybody's kind of on the same page and stuff, it's pretty much like no holds barred. You can do what you need to say what you need to say, you know, strategize what you need to strategize, do what you need to do. You're in the game, you're trying to figure shit out at that current time. This is a zone in-game communication where I think a lot of people run into trouble with, I'm going to use the word sensitive players. And I think there's like, you don't have to play competitive TF2 to be the best you can ever be. You don't have to. Maybe just enjoy it, right? And you just want to play for fun. And that's a big part of deciding who you're going to play with, right? It's really, really important that that team all have the same goals in mind, right? Because if there's a couple people that just want to play for fun, they don't care as much as the other people, it almost always falls apart.
Yeah.
Like almost always. And it's really important that if you get 6 guys who are like, yeah, we want to be really good, we want to improve, you know, our goal is to get like 3rd, 1st, 2nd, whatever the goal is this season. You've laid out the groundwork for your goals where you can now be there in game and be like, you know, it's really important to be able to talk with your team without people getting offended, because when you're saying stuff, you're just wanting to win. You just want to win.
Yeah.
So like when you turn around and you think your scout made a massive mistake, you have to be able to sit there in game and be like, man, you should not fucking do that. And that guy goes, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like, if he thinks otherwise, he just goes, yeah, you know what? We'll talk about it after.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's that difference between like playing with passion versus like having your feelings be hurt by someone, you know, criticizing a death or something like that, you know.
Absolutely.
Because I am a big self-critic of that sort of stuff, or I get, you know, kind of bummed about it. And, you know, you shouldn't beat yourself up too much, but, you know, you do need to like self-analyze, but that passion in the game is really important. And if people are kind of conflicting because of the passion for the game, and the way that people are trying to work through these problems, then that certainly becomes an issue. And there's a fine line there as well, you know, like, are these issues, you know, being handled in the correct manner? You know, are we communicating issues? You know, is there good passion behind it? or in the way that we kind of say things maybe kind of puts a damper on things. One thing that I've been a big proponent of is just making sure that communications are mostly positive or optimistic, and that when somebody goes for a big play, that you never talk down about that play in the chat, that in the midst of the moment you're supportive of that. Somebody whips out the spy,
you gotta trust your teammates 100%.
yeah. It's just, if somebody whips out the spy and they're like, I'm gonna go for a backstab on the medic for this last hold, like, I mean,
dude, that happens. Did I talk about this in the last podcast?
Maybe I might have brought it up.
With Blope, that happened to me this season, man.
Yeah.
I caught myself doing it, and I've been a leader for a really, really long time. And he goes spy when we're defending last sometimes. Not sometimes, pretty often. And every fucking time in my head, I'm like, why the fuck is he doing this?
Yeah.
And I even said it to a couple times. I'm like, why are you spying right now? And then he, like, just threw it in my face by getting, like, 2 backstabs, like, every single time he ever did it. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is, like, a thing that we can... Like,
yeah.
And it was a huge lesson for me, even in, like, my 250th ECA game, right? Like, shit like that. Which, it's so true what you're saying. Like, you just got to back up those plays and back up your teammates 100% when they have an idea. Like, you have to be able to trust them. And
it's, because there's a balance to it. Like, you can critique that stuff afterwards. You can talk about that stuff afterwards. Even if it's just, oftentimes it might be good just to try to get an understanding of it. Say, hey, why did you think that was a good decision? Because, from my perspective, this is what I saw. And he, person might even acknowledge, all of those risks and what was going on. But also at the end of the day, like, that person is on your team because you trust in them, you believe in them, and you believe in their experiences.
Yeah, like, you picked up that person for a reason.
Yeah, so all of their experiences are telling them that, hey, this might work out. This might be better than what I was just doing, So that's why I lean heavily towards, supporting those people and that sort of behavior. And if, somebody does that too much and it just doesn't work out, then, I mean, sometimes you got to cut people, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's sort of our next topic. We've kind of been moseying through our topics, but dealing with issues as a team, right? And that, does kind of speak to that, I think that, kind of the team meetings are an important, just part of the process. Both kind of a quick chat after a match, kind of wrapping up with things. But sometimes it's also important to just kind of let people, catch their breath and step away or have some time away and then to come back and deal with that. In the past, as a coach and as someone involved in esports coaching, sometimes there's situations that you just need to pull one guy aside as a team captain, as a team leader, and say, hey, let's chat about this real quick. Sometimes you have to mediate between 2 people and actually pull 2 people together and say, hey, we're not trying to make this a big issue in front of the whole team, but this guy has kind of raised this issue. That's just kind of a concern. It deals with you, and so I'm just bringing you guys here together to, talk that out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do the committee, right? Of like, hey, let's get 4 people together. Like, this one guy that's not here. Like, are we just going to deal with him or fire him?
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of talking about when you get the core of your team together, right? And like, that core exists with my team. Like, I've played with Felon and Paul Dog for years.
Yeah.
And those are my guys, right? Like, and you're always playing with new people, and you got to give the new people a chance to be a part of your core as well, and then eventually your core can grow and stuff. But it is true, like, when you need to deal with... I actually kind of do it a little opposite. Like, when we deal with private issues, like, we talk about it, like, together, like us 3, and, whoever else is a part of the core of the team at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just using those 2 as an example because they've been the core of most of my teams that I've played on. And otherwise, like, when it comes to, like, actual in-game issues or, like, playing issues and stuff, like, it's usually, like, for me, like, it's good to just talk it out, like, 6 people, just sit there, talk it out.
Yeah.
Because then it's, like, the issue with one person might be an issue with more people that just haven't expressed it yet, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still good to talk with everyone and get all 6 people on the same page, like, what's going on in this situation, right? So...
It was such an interconnected esport, right? What's happening with the flank and the roaming scout, affects the combo and the pocket scout and the demo man, So
Yeah.
Certainly, a lot of times, you have to, kind of sit down and just have these powwows. Whether it's a post-match wrap-up, whether it's a pre-match, strategy talk, a match discussion, a map discussion, excuse me. And that's something as well that, we kind of skipped over a little bit in terms of practice and growing with a team. But, just doing these things like a map review, where one guy is talking and running around as scout or whatever, the 5 other players are watching his, perspective, and, whether it's the team leader or somebody else on the team, but just kind of physically going through a map and discussing these different aspects of it.
Right.
I'm not sure how important you found that in your tier 2 career.
I would love to build on this topic. I'm going to rant on it a little bit because this is something that I have personally been a part of doing like exclusively for a long time. And a lot of what you're saying basically falls on your in-game leader or team leader in general. And a big part of making a team too is like when I was talking about getting everyone on the same page and stuff. When I say get on the same page, I don't mean like everyone goes like, okay, this is what I want to do, and someone else goes, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. You're never gonna decide between those people. So it's really up to like how you're gonna construct your team to like work through like one person's mind almost. You know what I mean? Because that's like you're gonna have that one guy who sits there and goes, no, this is what we're doing, and everyone just knows like even if it's a bad call or you think it's a bad call, that's the 6-man commit right there to what that person's saying. And a part of those like reviews and stuff, and I think a big problem for a lot of growing players, especially ones that maybe have a little more of an ego than others, is relinquishing their what they think they should be doing almost. Because like when it comes to, there's no good way to get 6 people on the same page. Like you're almost never going to have 6 people who think a certain situation should play out exactly the same in all of their minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once that happens, you're on Froyo Tech.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really hard, and I think when it comes, and like I've had troubles with that recently because I'm a medic player, and generally your medic is like the least ideal person to have as your like main caller and also organizing a team and stuff, because they pretty much everything a medic calls or wants to call is like 10 seconds late because they can't see everything, right?
Yeah.
Soldier can see or whatever. But regardless of who it is on the team, it's really important that you nail down your team. Like, yeah, when this guy's saying something, this is what we're doing 100%. And I even with my team, like I've relinquished like my main calling role and I act more as like a sub caller is what we call it now. And you need those on your team as well, because you can't just have one person as well, like microing shit the entire time. You still need to have the ability to call throughout your team, where someone can see a situation in front of them unfolding and they go, oh, no, we're doing this, let's go.
Yeah.
And we're in, right? But at the same time, you need to strike that balance between those sub-callers and like your main caller says, nah, we're not doing this. And like I said, that's a huge problem. Like, it's not a problem, I'd say, but it's hard for players who are on the come up to adapt to that. And I've spent a ton of time teaching up and coming players, like tons of time. And so I've experienced this like more than most people is what I would say.
Just a real quick tidbit on that communication too is just like the giving wrong information, right? That one just drives me wild. I want to say it was like an Overwatch comic or some comic I saw, but just the classic, like, that medic is so lit. And then it's just like, you make your bomb and then they're like standing on a health pack, and you're just like, ugh. Yeah. Like, why did I do this,
And when people are in the moment and the adrenaline's pumping and stuff and people are passionate and they want to win, they're going to make what's the word I'm looking for, emphatic calls like that when they're just in it, right? Which it happens at all levels still. And as long as you're like being consistent most of the time, then it's fine. I want to kind of come back to talking as like a leader and stuff too, like during the games, and kind of back to my original point of like when you're talking, because I still want to hit on my other point, which is like there's 2 types of communication, which is the one you do in game and then the one you do after the game or with your team in general. I'm still going to touch on the in-game one a little bit, which is, like I'm a huge advocate of this, which is like, not advocate, but I do this all the time, which is like sometimes when you're in game And especially when you're someone who's a caller, you can get really fucking heated when someone's making a mistake or not doing what you're asking. And it's really important that you realize that these people who are getting heated or whatever are not trying to be assholes. They're trying to get a point across.
Yeah,
right? Like a couple seasons back, and I'm not going to drop names or anything like that.
Yeah.
A couple seasons back, I played on a team, and I played with a player. I'm not going to name class either, whatever, because we will figure it out. But like I was the guy who got everyone back in line during a game. Like we'd be fucking around, and I'd be like, okay, we need to stop fucking around right now.
Yeah.
Like you guys are being idiots, and sometimes people need to hear that to get back to click back in. And I had this guy on my team, and he's like, oh, I just really can't deal with the name calling and stuff. And he was like, it was unbelievably sensitive, and just like it completely messed up the team chemistry because everyone's like, oh yeah, for sure, we're back in it. But this one guy was like really upset because in game we were fucking up a lot, and I was like, man, we need to stop fucking up. And he'd be like, man, why do you gotta be so mad about it? That's like, and I mean, I'm a really competitive, passionate guy, and I played really high level rugby as part of my competitive degree. And when I played high level competitive rugby, if I fucked something up in practice, the coach would come up to me and he'd be like, you fucked that up again, and I'm flying you back home to Ontario. Like, you're not, you know what I mean? It's simple as that. And and it's honestly, if you can find people who can take on that attitude, it's so great as a leader, because no one's taking it to heart. Like, you're not doing it to be an asshole, but at the same time, no one's taking it to heart. They're just like, oh yeah, fuck, like, we gotta refocus here. Because like a lot of people do need that. Like, you can lose track of like what your goal is in the game or what you're doing when it's between 5 other people, and sometimes you just really need that asshole to be like, you guys are fucking stupid.
Crack the whip a little bit, and provide some leadership. Right? I had a game of Dota that was like that, where it's just, this teammate, everybody's making the right calls, and everybody's making the right calls. Nobody's actually listening to the calls, and then we start losing, and one of our guys go, oh man, these guys are playing so good. And I was like, shut the fuck up. If we just like followed, if people just cleaned out their ears and listened to like what we all are saying, then this will be fine, and sometimes like just that kind of angry, urgent, snap back to reality. The TF2 comparison from my own perspective as well is like, I'm the medic, I shouldn't be in front of anybody. Like if it's like, hey guys, let's push, and then like I'm running in front of, 2 soldiers and 2 scouts, it's just like, why were you guys not in front of me already? Like, you guys got legs, I'm running as fast as I can, and I'm way in front of you, like.
Absolutely. So, like and I totally get you there. And now I'm gonna go back, and we can kind of hit on the topic of team discussion, like, and team attitude outside of game. And there's a big thing here for me personally, because it's another thing I've experienced a lot when I talk about like teaching newer players and stuff. I think when you're a player coming up or you're a player on a team, it's always really great to have like veteran presence. They do that in like lots of sports and stuff too, like basketball. They sign guys who are veteran presence that know a lot about the game, but they're maybe not as skilled anymore. And I think a lot of kids in TF2 coming up think because their skill level is really high that they have nothing to learn from someone who they're better than skill-wise. Right? And when it comes to talking about situations at a game where you're talking with your team and you have a leader, and I'm going to use me for example because I'm pretty experienced, like I've taught a lot of people, it's really important that like you know your place, but at the same time you get your respect that you deserve, right? Like you want to know your place, and you should be happy about being able to sponge information off of like a really veteran, experienced player. Like, you want that, but at the same time you need to talk to them with respect, even if they're worse than you or whatever, and vice versa. Like, your leader needs to be able to respect the teammates that he has around him, and not and like if your leader just thinks that he's better than you, or he thinks that you're stupid or something, then it's just going to go downhill real fast. Like, your leader has to have absolute like total authority, but also total trust in his teammates, right? And when it comes to discussions like that outside of game, I really do believe like it needs to be driven by like 1 or 2 people, and then kind of other people follow for the most part. But like they still follow, as best they can. Like they're not just like on the sides like, oh, I'm just here to play or whatever. But and those discussions like out of game, like that's where you can really get into the nitty gritty and get a little heated, like if you want to and shit, because like you're not in a game at the moment, right? And it's the same thing. Like you can't get offended by bullshit. Like you guys can exchange words or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're still teammates. You're still friends. Like this fucking happens with me all the time with Felon. I play with him forever. And some nights, man, some nights we just fucking scream at each other. Like sometimes we just get so pissed, and people think it's like the end of the world, but literally like 30 minutes later we play another game together, like with nothing ever happened, right? Because we've just played together for so long, so we know that that's how the situation is.
Right.
And we're both really competitive people, and as long as everybody recognizes, like, yeah, you're really competitive, you're really passionate about this, you really want to win, that's why you're saying all these things, then it becomes a lot easier to like be receptive in those team talks, right?
Yeah, it's definitely. And I think, you know, again, sort of rewinding a bit, but just talking about people understanding their own motivations and what they want out of the game and the scene, you know, because if you are like, hey, I'm a casual guy and I'm just here to have fun, you know, then if people, you know, being blunt with their assessments of your performance and stuff, if that's upsetting to you, then like you need to find a team of other people that are just trying to show up and have fun and are not really trying to focus on this process of learning and growing. But, you know, and then to kind of transition that, you know, again, sort of talking about, you know, real things that have happened in the match or talking about these team discussions, you know, if you can take the positives out of situations that didn't go your way, you know, when you're growing as a team are really important, you know, to realize, especially hand in hand with this issue of, you know, communicating and a team leader and who's making the calls. If somebody makes a call and everybody follows it and it's the right call, but people's like gameplay fall apart, then, you know, you still have to, as a team, look at that and be like, you know what, we made the right decision. You know, we're growing. We didn't get the result we wanted, but that was a good decision. You know, we're following through. You know, you have to see the silver lining in some of these circumstances in order to increase, you know, the rate of your growth. And a lot of these things that we're talking about are all really, really small things. And, you know, I think it'd be easy if you just be like, oh, like, why do we need to work on that? Because we just, like, slay anyways. You know, like, we 5-0'd those last kids, and we're going to 5-0 these next kids. Like, why do we, you know, really need to, you know, work on that small issue, you know, and it's, you know, that small aspect of mentality. And it's like, it all just adds up and adds up and adds up. And at the end of the day, you know, is your tally of everything that you've done to prepare yourself for this match, is your tally better than the other teams, you know?
Right. And,
so.
This kind of leads into next steps as a team too, where I have a really, what I like to consider a really good concept that I try to instill in my teams, and it's don't worry about, like, don't focus on results, focus on improvement.
Yeah.
And results will come.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially in scrims, like especially in sims, they go through the motions and they think what's important is winning the scrim.
Yeah.
And that's just entirely not true. Like, it's your practice. It's your time to try shit.
Yeah.
And take new setups and maybe lose.
Right. Probably.
And if you focus on just winning all the time, so, and like this will happen with us, right? So we'll play scrims against a team that's not nearly as good as like a mid-invite team, right? And like we could be beating them with some shit that we do all the time, and we've actually got run into this season because we've beaten teams doing what we've been doing for a while, right? Well, we've noticed that when you play against better teams, you got to kind of change up what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we could sit there and we go, oh, well, the way we were doing it before, we were smashing these teams in scrims, so we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then eventually when we do that exact same thing against one of the mid-invite teams, we get absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work against them, right?
Right.
And a lot of teams get stuck in that little loop of, and it's kind of because, like, I honestly think a lot of people have really fragile egos, right? And they don't want to lose. But they get stuck in that loop of where do you draw the line between winning the scrims and trying new shit and trying to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a huge thing. Like focusing on your practice is way more important than people think. And I think that people don't even, like, when they hear that, don't even understand that concept necessarily. Like, they think like, oh yeah, like I'll just stay really focused on the scrim. And it's like, no, it's like make mistakes. You know what I mean? You got to try shit to make mistakes and make things work, because without the mistakes, you don't learn from anything, right? And then you're just going to sit there. You get this false sense of security that you're doing something really good when you're not trying anything or pushing the boundaries at all in your scrims. And then when it comes to match time, you're screwed, because the other part of it is in match time, when you run into trouble and you're not treating your practice properly, you're going to run into big trouble in the match when shit goes south and your practice is not, you know, you can't fall back on like what you know so well from practice, right?
Yeah, I had one of my rowing coaches who, I think several of my rowing coaches who were big proponents of this concept of professionalism. And, you know, that's something that I, you know, hold very high, and I feel really adds to a team's, you know, capabilities to perform really well. And just that sense of, you know, every step that you're taking, you know, are you approaching it in a kind of a professional attitude and a professional perspective? You know, so, you know, practice, you know, did you show up on time to practice? You know, did you show up early on practice to hang out with your other teammates before practice is actually about to start? You know, did you show up warmed up to practice? You know, are you showing up to practice, you know, as focused as you would be on match day, you know? And again, obviously some of that professionalism, you know, on match day, you know, same thing, you know, is your team showing up, you know, as scheduled, you know? Are you getting emotionally worked up by the pregame chat of the other team? You know, is the fact that, you know, their last player is 14 minutes late? You know, does that, you know, do you have something pulled up on the side so that you can stay warm? Or are you just sitting there in a cold chair, like not moving? You know, there's just a lot of these aspects of professionalism, just in terms of like taking ownership to all the steps that have gotten you to your performance, and then taking, you know, ownership over how you performed and all of the steps that you can do in order to better your performance.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying there. And like, I'm losing my train of thought there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And like, it is a big thing. Like, people come to scrims, they don't really care that much, and then like you have like younger kids who don't focus very well and stuff like that. And realistically, like it's kind of a fine balance, because the teams that are at the very top of invite, like, well, I mean, like, no, this isn't really that true actually. Like, I know they all try really hard and practice and stuff and still practice a lot, but you know, the push from like, I'd honestly say the real push from as a team from like mid IM to like actual low invite is like the hardest push any team can make, really. Like, it's such a trial and error thing, and it takes multiple seasons, and that's why you don't see a lot of like true invite teams like coming through the bottom, right, and developing, right, because they hit that bumpy road of trying to win IM or be high IM, and then also still try to be competitive in low invite, and they lose a ton. You lose a ton. My team loses all the time right now, man. But that's what I'm talking about, is that if our team was a team that focused on results, we'd have been dead like 6 seasons ago. Like, because we understand the level that we're at, and we're trying to push it a bit and stuff like that.
Right.
But you can't push it doing what you're comfortable with, and you know what I mean? And to do stuff you're not comfortable with, you're going to fucking lose. And that's a big part of it, and I think people need to accept the losing more as like a growth thing, as opposed to like a bad thing about their team. Like team, you know, a really good team in IM might lose a couple matches, and then they throw their toys out the pram because they lost a couple matches. They're supposed to be the best team, or they are the best team, and they lost to like the 6th place team. It's like, yeah, you can still be the best team and lose to the 6th place team on a match night. That's a fuck up, right? But you take that experience and you grow from it. You don't take it and go, oh my god, we lost this. What are people gonna think? Like, what are people gonna think? Like, everyone thinks we're shit now. Like, I'm mid IM because I lost this team. It's like, no, none of that stuff is real. That's all just like a manifestation in your mind, right? Like, it's all about the mentality when it comes to that push, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Losing is a very important part of the team process and the growth process overall. You know, and I think as well that kind of mentions or harkens back to, you know, your story about playing Froyotech, and I've played Froyotech before, and just, you know, in those circumstances, you know, do you approach it and say, hey, you know, this is going to be a 5-0 loss, let's get this over with, so that we can pug somebody that's our skill level, or do you say, hey, well, let's really focus on this. Let's see what we can get out of this. Let's see what practice, even if it's just, let's show up to mid and all die, but pay attention to what Froyotech did. Like
Man,
that's
and like
a learning process.
There's still good teams that even do that, man.
Yeah.
Like there's teams that like when they play against Froyo, they literally just like off class, like lower invite teams, and they don't even try like. And then even this season, like Mason's team, they got propaganda against Froyotech, and they literally just didn't show up to the match because they thought they would lose. Like they just forfeited. They didn't even try to play, which is like such a joke, right? And like I respect a lot of players on that team, but that shit is bitch made.
Yeah. I mean that's
yeah. And I was gonna say, like, when it comes to that situation with my team, like we play against Froyo, and I think we get the respect from them that we deserve or whatever. And it's about small goals when it comes to huge gaps like that. Like last season, Nursey got a perfect game against us, so this season we're making sure Nursey doesn't get a perfect game, and then this game that we just played the other day, we're like, okay, we're gonna make sure that like Habib doesn't get a perfect game as well as Nursey. Like, those are the things you have to do, because like you have to recognize like there isn't a world where we beat them. And so you're not going to get the result you want. So what can you do during the game to actually improve your team and make something good out of this for your team, right? Because like if you focus on the result there, you're going to be disappointed. Like, you're going to fucking lose that game. You know what I mean? Like if we sit here and we go like, no guys, like we're in this, we can totally beat Froyo. You're just setting yourself up for not a good time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know what I mean? And you have to like find the balance there, right? So and that kind of just goes back to exact thing is like setting up, goals as opposed to actually focusing on the results of your games. Yeah.
And I think that's, definitely also ties into, that next steps, of just kind of deciding, whether, an accomplishment of a season was, worth it, whether it was really good, whether there's things that you need to adjust moving forward, or whether it's just, a period of growth for you guys. Continuing to play, off season, continuing to scrim, and even for, teams that are just kind of newer, just kind of making that plan of like, okay, well, is there another, league or tournament or cup that we could jump in? If we're just scrimming these guys, do we start stepping it up and asking for, mid-low or something like that, definitely, controlling your roster is important. The Burnsiders, we've really in a lot of situations really tried to stress a long-term perspective. We'd prefer to work with players that we know are going to be around and involved and have devotion, and if people have real life issues, then that just comes up and that has to be dealt with. Trying to have substitutes or a seventh player can also be a really important part of just making sure that your team is super stable.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to kind of where my team's at with it, too, in that respect. And, like, I want to send out a message, too, for anybody who is watching this, like, kind of at this level where they're making the push. I'm going to say, like, if you're playing this game and you want to be a high-level player, that's great and stuff. But, like, make sure that you're enjoying it. And also, if you're making the push to be an invite team and be as a core and stuff like that, expect to lose.
Yeah.
And like take the losing in stride. And I will say, like from experience I've had over time, being a high IM and low invite team is extremely high pressure. And because when you're a high IM team, you have a lot of pressure on you to win, and at the same time, low invite, you're a lot of pressure to win against high IM teams because you're an invite team, etc. The reality is, a lot of mid invite players will not join your team as a low invite team. You will almost always have to develop players and then become good. And it's a process, right? And if I had a message to anyone that's trying to make that push, right? You don't have to win IM to be an invite team or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can have a core and you can develop players and you can have a good attitude and you will be better if you focus on not just like winning every scrim. You know what I mean? And that's what you're going to run into when you get to this level, right? Is you need to find players or play with players that are going to push their level if you want to be good, because the reality is none of the established upper echelon TF2 players are going to play with you. Yeah. Like there might be one or two here and there, but and I think a lot of teams falter that way, right? Because they go high IM and then like they lose a couple of matches and they have a real idea of what their level is, and then they have to replace players, and they're like, oh well, this guy, like, you know, our roster isn't nearly good as last season anymore. We can't do it. Like, the team's dead. And it's like no, you might have to take a step back a little bit, but you can still sit there and develop those players and still push your level. And I really hope that a lot of teams start taking on that mentality, because that's what's going to create over time a higher level of play overall in Invite. And the last 2 seasons, the teams have been really, really good across the board. Like last season, with like us, the Old Ascent, and like Omni 5, I really do believe that that was almost one of the first seasons, or first season in a long time, where the bottom Invite teams could have easily won IM. Whereas in most cases, you would consider the top IM team to be
stronger. Yeah.
So it's on the way. You know what I mean? It's happening. There's a new structuring of the ESA prize system and shit like that too. But that's just basically my main advice, which is like, you need to stick with it, right? You need to focus on the practice, stick with it, trust teammates, and like try to really get people to push their own level, as opposed to looking to upgrade all the time and stuff. And sometimes you're not going to get that. Sometimes you will get that. And I don't know. More teams just need to stick with it, I guess.
Yeah. And I liked your point earlier as well about playing, giving respect to the older players that have been around, because I think that their communication style, that's like where people can learn the most from. You know, if you're up and coming and you can find a player that's a veteran, been through the ranks, then that player can just teach you so much and really help accelerate your learning.
Yeah. And it's like funny too, because like if you look at the upper level players, and like you see like Habib and Banny and stuff, they stream all the time, and we're gonna relate it back to like communication stuff. And like you look at Banny, and like, you know, people love to hate the guy, right? But if you watch him when he's playing and stuff, like that dude never dwells on shit. Like he could instantly lose 3 players and he's instantly talking like next job, next job. He's got that mentality, right? And you know, there's a reason that people are attracted to play with him, and there's a reason that Froyo's been so good for so long. Obviously, a big part of that is Blaze too, because like he's one of his core players, right? And that's that big thing with the core. You know, Banny's always played with Blaze, always, and it's the same thing with him. When you see it happening in the upper level teams, like people really need to try and emulate that, right? It's hard to practice exactly or do exactly what Froyo does, but when it comes to stuff like communication and just having the right attitude and just the right mentality throughout your team, like it makes a world of difference. Like a huge difference, right?
Yeah, I think so as well. And I feel like those some of those steps aren't too hard to emulate, right? You know, Banny overall and a lot of Banny's skills are hard to emulate, but you know, some of the professional and preparedness aspects and team communication are not too hard.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, it's covered a lot of stuff there. But I mean, it's mostly, it really comes down to have a good attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really what it comes down to is have a good attitude and don't alienate your teammates. You know what I mean? Try to work with your teammates and stuff. And if it's not working, leave a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's simple as that. Like, I feel like a lot of people too, like, they don't like a team and they just play. It's like, no, man, if you don't like a team and you don't fit on a team, don't waste your time. You know, move on, right?
Yeah, if you don't feel respected, don't like your teammates, you know, just there's plenty of places that you can play out there and other people that are cooler, right?
Your gaming career is too short to waste it not enjoying yourself.
Don't hang out with assholes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's mostly what I have to say on the topic. I feel like we covered a lot there.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's kind of a deeper dive that we might want to do in a future episode, kind of talking about some of the other aspects of a team, whether it's like, you know, your branding, you know, what's a good name, you know, your logo, your tag, but you know,
I mean, we can get into that a little bit right now.
A little bit. I don't know. It's kind of a deep dive going into just, you know, social media stuff, frag videos, you know, trying to get a sponsor, you know, what a sponsor can provide for you, you know, what you might be wanting out of that whole process, right?
The only thing I'm going to say about it now is that I think people in TF2, and I made a big post about this a while back on TFTV, is like people in TF2 need to realize, like, there's always people watching.
Yeah.
People like to think that no sponsor cares about this game and stuff like that. And the only reason they don't care is because they look and they go on ESCA and they see some team name called like Mean Dream Team, you know, Beep Bop Beep Boop or whatever the fuck, right? And then no one cares about their team brand, like you said, right? No one's, there's even the teams that are sponsored that still don't even like, you know, wear the logo brand as their avatars and stuff like that, right? Like velocity and mentality for the longest time. Not that I think they were required or anything, but still, it's like, it's kind of goes back to what you're saying about professionalism, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's barely, I shouldn't say no one, a vast majority of the community is not professional.
Yeah.
Like in any way when it comes to their competitive nature. And that's fine. But if people do want to attract sponsors and stuff and do attract branding, like they need to show that they can do it. Whenever my team wasn't sponsored, like my team was branded, my team was professional, and you know, I've had a lot of sponsors over the years come forward and like try to play with us, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of validates your own worth, you know, and I think that your name is the only kind of tangible thing that you have in this industry, you know, whether it's your player name or whether it's your team name. And I think team name wise, you know, yeah, people don't realize, but you know, that there are brands out there like Froyotech, you know, like Ascent, that have been these, you know, kind of self-made machines where, you know, Froyotech particularly for sure, it's just like they've been Froyotech and people know who Froyotech is and knows what Froyotech is about because Banny and his consistent team have been consistently doing this. You know, if you change your team name every year, every season, you know, there's just no way to track you or progress you, you know. But if you have a decent non-offensive team name and you've been around for, you know, 4, 5, 6 seasons, you know, people are going to recognize you and know you and, you know, add more value to, you know, that team name and the players that are on it. A brief, you know, story from the history of TF2, but just this, you know, one team after, you know, years and years of debacle, you know, they just like put out a press release and they're like, hey, we're getting sponsored by Blight Gaming, you know, for a whole bunch of nothing, you know, and you're just like, you're like, what are you doing? That's the only thing that you know, your entire career is building up, you know, your personality, your presence, your name, and then it was this team, and it's just like, you're just gonna give your team name to Blight for like nothing, you know, just really perplexing. And so, yeah, I hope people do start to, you know, take more realization of like the value that you're actually like building, you know, from your team name and your brand, and, you know, having, you know, a core of team that these, you know, TF2 community, that the spectators can see and be like, oh, I know who those guys are. I know what that team means because I know that guy, I know that guy, I know that guy. I might not know the other three, but I've seen those guys around. I've seen their streams. I've seen how they behave. I know what that team is about, and I will follow that team.
Yeah, 100%.
And I guess quickly to touch on that, you know, Scratch XD saying, how do I become a professional with a brand? Can I show them my MGE resume? And I mean, it's just as simple. I mean, the world of Twitch and esports and the internet overall is just this wild, wild west. I mean, you just, if you want to be Scratch XD, you know, then it's just like, make somebody make you a logo that says Scratch and then a little XD face on it, you know, and just rock that, you know, just use that and use that as your brand. Enter some ulti duo tournaments, you know, put that up there, and just represent it well, and it'll just, you know, gain more and more value as you represent it in a professional fashion. So
I mean, a big part, like the biggest part and the easiest part of branding and like representing a brand is actually care about it.
Yeah,
because like, I mean, it's like the same thing. I've seen teams that have been sponsored over the years, and they don't even give a shit to actually like use the sponsors' tags or their avatars and actually put their name out there, right? Like they're just like a name on an ESCA sheet. And eventually, those people don't care. Right? Like back in the day, another old thing, right? When like pretty much every invite team was sponsored, like everyone was rocking tags, everyone was making videos for that sponsor, everyone was, you know, doing whatever, right? Like everyone was making everything and representing that brand that they were being sponsored by. And, you know, we've hit a point in TF2 where you're not going to get that much out of branding and sponsoring and stuff, but you will get enough that it'll help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you get your fees paid and servers paid. It's just like, you know, every bit counts, right? Anything that anybody wants to contribute to TF2, everyone should be especially grateful for.
Yeah.
Because, you know, every tiny bit for TF2 is, like, huge. It's simple as that. And I do think that especially with the teams that are sponsored right now currently. So hopefully some of them are watching or whatever. It's like represent their fucking brands, man. Like be proud that you were a part of that brand. Be proud to be a part of that organization and fucking rep that shit. Like you should be happy. You should be happy to be like, yeah, you know, check out this Ascent logo. I'm on Ascent. You know what I mean? Or like check out this Kingscrew logo. I'm on fucking Kingscrew. You know what I mean? Like it's simple as that, right? Like you got to just be happy and proud to represent a brand. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, just this thing, if players want, you know, the money going out from leagues to increase, you know, the money coming in into leagues has to increase. And most of that money, you know, should be coming from people that aren't actually playing. You know, we don't want players to be having to fork over money so that players get paid. We want money to come from outside sources. And while ESCA fees, and ESCA is an amateur, you know, or semi-pro league, while those fees are not all that expensive, if a non-player is paying for those fees, and then, you know, you certainly have to respect that contribution into the community.
Oh, absolutely. Like when you look at Kingscrew, like Jinx is the owners of Kingscrew. He's fronted our fees for like 2 seasons straight in Invite, and that's like $1,200 right there, almost like Canadian.
That's significant though, you know.
That's a huge amount of money to be giving for almost nothing. Basically just like views and helping with the brand, like the growth of the brand, right?
Yeah.
But if you see the way my players are and the way they represent the brand and the way they act professionally with the brand, like you get that stuff in return if you show that you care.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I guess one other, you know, we don't have to get into it too much. I guess it just gets into respecting those sponsor contracts. You know, if someone you know does want you to do, I was talking about. Do you remember Quantic? You remember what happened with Quantic?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Where I got somebody reached out to me. You know, again, might as well leave some names out of it. I'm sure people could figure out who I'm talking about. Somebody reached out to me and was just like, "Oh man, we need help because like Quantic is screwing us." And it's like, "Oh yeah, how are they screwing you?" And it's like, "Well, they're not like following the contract." And I was like, "Oh well, why? You know, like what's their reasoning?" And it's like, "Because we weren't following the contract." You know, I was like, yeah, like, you know, that, you know, if you guys didn't hold your end of the contract in terms of, you know, doing publicity or making videos for these guys, then the sponsor has like no obligation to, you know, honor that. You know, I think, you know, eagle-eyed people that have been watching the XTV channel for a really long time will remember when YZ50, you know, did his webcam video, you know, announcing his new blog series, and then that was the last of the vlog series, you know, and I was 100% within my right as a sponsor there to just kind of pull my contract, you know, and just be like, I'm not going to pay for you guys to go to LAN because you couldn't make me, you know, 7 5-minute webcam videos over the course of months, you know. And that sort of stuff is really important, and it's definitely super important that that people, you know, do respect the involvement of sponsors and other organizations.
I do got to throw in a little story this season though, because that happened with me. I'm not going to name any names. When I was really desperate to pick up a player this season, we kind of came down to the wire, and Jinx actually came to me and he said, you know, what can I do to help you get a player? And he offered a signing bonus to whoever we were going to sign at the time. Like legitimately, he was going to get the player that we offered the signing bonus to. He's going to get an extra $200 on top of his fees just to play with us.
Yeah.
Just no questions asked, play with us. But this player happened to be a younger person and absolutely did not understand what a contract meant or what a verbal contract meant. So this player refused the bonus by saying that he wanted to try out for another team. And then when he decided that he didn't like that other team, said, yeah, I'll come back for the bonus now. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works, man. I was like, and he was really, really upset and did not understand the concept of the fact that you get this bonus for joining the team, no questions asked, not after you decide the other team is shit. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a funny situation that happened. I swear to God, that would have been like the first like TF2 player that got a signing bonus. Like forever.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, wasn't there some story? Was it like, was it Blaze or YZ50 or Giggly who got a pair of shoes or something like that?
No, it was Nate Rivers. That was Nate Rivers.
Okay.
Nate Rivers got a brand new pair of Air Jordans or something like that from Charisse, play on
Oh,
Psyops.
okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
And she
that's
fucking
legit.
he literally bought and sent the shoes to his address and he played.
Yeah,
for
that's
that season.
hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I've started thinking about that as well for the Burnsiders. Do we, make people pay their own ESEA fees just because that shows some sort of semblance of responsibility, and if they have to talk to their parents to get their parents to pay for their ESEA fees, then that's a conversation that I would want them to have. And instead of me paying their fees, I'll send them a sweatshirt. Like there's definitely ways to make it up for the players or to do other things. So.
I remember back like kind of what you were saying there. The very first time I was ever gonna go to the ESA Invite Land, my parents like had no idea, and
yeah,
it was funny because I had to get one of the players on my team to actually call my parents,
yeah,
and talk to them and be like, yeah, this is for real, and say to actually like get me to go. So I was under 18 at the time.
Yeah.
So, I was like totally bad.
Yeah.
It was just a really funny situation.
Yeah, I mean, those are important conversations to have. I mean, I think that there's been some circumstances that have been maybe family emergencies where somebody hasn't been able to go, but sometimes as well, some of these stories make you question, where they're like, I couldn't go because my mom like planned this trip, and you're like, whoa, like you just went to the mall, like if you like I think your mom would understand if you had told her that it was like the league finals, like. But part of communicating with your team, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can move right on to dessert. We got plenty to chew over there. And what I wanted to bring up for dessert was that registration is closing for the RGL.gg matchmaking league, closing on Friday. I don't think we have a Burnsider squad ready to go. LeCrum's got to put some people together. You were mentioning that King's Crew's going to be in there, though?
King's Crew is in it, bro. We're already signed up. We're in the invite division, full squad.
Excellent.
We're ready to go. Ready to run some cool class setups. I hope that people, like, when I look at the league, I really hope that people, like, what I'm seeing right now is people are, like, using it as an excuse to off class. And it's like you can already do that in sixes. The point of the league is that you're supposed to experiment with setups and stuff like that. Everyone's like, oh, looking for team as gunslinger engineer, and it's like, okay, you're kind of defeating the purpose. Like, I'm glad you're gonna have fun with it, but you could do that in sixes already if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just really laying out that that's what they want to do. And I mean, I think that how you view it is more the truth of the situation. And I think that advertising as a gunslinger engineer, it's like that should just be part of your package, because I do think that like stuff like the comp matchmaking, we will see wackier stuff like ScoRes Demo Man, perhaps, or Demo Night and a few other things. Sounds like Super Monkey Apples has a full Demo Night squad that's going to be in there. Catman saying little class structure, and when I played it, that's what it felt like, is that I am sort of off-classing, but I'm bouncing back and forth between the competitive classes and the off-classing. And it was kind of nice because it's like, well, we had 2 scouts. One of them is dead, and that guy's talking about going sniper. I can go from engineer to scout, and...
right, and like with that same concept, like my team's already talking about like doing rotating medics. So like the first person that spawns always comes up on medic or something like that, right?
That sounds really smart, honestly.
Yeah, for like that extra advantage and stuff like that. And it's
like,
that's something you can actually do that you cannot do in sixes, right? I mean, like my point was that like you can do random bullshit off classes in sixes already at random times. It's more about the setups and like what you can do, like in general, like with the increased ups. Like how good is Demo Man even gonna be now that maybe there could be 3 soldiers or 3 scouts? Like maybe you don't even run a Demo Man anymore. Like that's the kind of stuff I hope people actually experiment with in RGL. And I already have an idea of like kind of what my team wants to try running and stuff as like the standard setup.
Yeah,
not really, but if it's stuff we want to try, like initially rotating medics is definitely one of them. So, I got this sick, like, kamikaze middle strat, go fight you 5 soldiers and spawn, you go quick fix, buff them all, and then you switch to soldier yourself, and you 6-man soldier to middle.
Ooh.
Yeah,
the rocket jumper market gardener on the 6th guy,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Exactly. If anyone wants to try that out, let me know. But, yeah, I mean, I really hope that people do experiment with the actual setups more rather than just, like, doing bullshit off class and stuff, like, and it's got a pretty decent prize pool now, so I hope.
Yeah, certainly marketplace.tf, contributing to it, bumps it up a bit and makes it a bit more exciting, relevant, and, have that actual financial incentive versus just somebody being like, I'm just going to troll with this weapon to show that it's boring. If you do that and you lose the game, then everybody's just going to laugh at you. If there's $500 on the line, it's like if there's no money on the line, then people are going to be like, you're really violating the spirit of this experiment, And
like, when it comes to the realism of this situation, like, I do unfortunately think that people, by doing, like, having that attitude I was kind of talking about where they're just looking to off class, like, and be dumb, it's kind of setting it up to fail a little bit rather than people trying to thrive in the format.
Yeah,
it's like,
see what it's
they're gonna do a bunch of random ass shit. They're not gonna talk about it. Their games are going to be really fucking weird and messed up, and then they're going to sit there and be like, this is so stupid, like, because they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what they're really trying to achieve, and I really hope that people don't actually end up doing that. But it will happen. Like, a few teams are definitely going to let that happen.
Yeah, I think it should be a pretty good time. It'll be interesting to see as well if there are other teams that just try to kind of just say, you know what, we like the kind of quote-unquote standard 6s, and we're just going to run that the whole time.
I really should reach out to Sigafu too and see if he'll run some new maps, actually, because that would be a great opportunity to run some new maps as well, probably.
Yeah, try to slip that new map in there. We had people in chat asking for that new map, Pugs. You got another one planned?
I don't have one planned right now, but usually I could drop the Discord link in the chat real quick.
Yeah, definitely.
What I'm generally doing right now is I kind of got the new movement towards the new maps right now, and I generally try to get people IM and up in skill level just because it yields a better test and stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I kind of run them like 3 times a week around 5 p.m. Eastern, and we work directly with map developers, and sometimes they even sit in on the games and like talk directly with players. And it's been super productive so far. Like, the list of maps that I'm working with right now is insane. The progress has been insane. I kind of posted like a little progress report in this thread that I'm about to post.
Oh, nice.
And it's pretty crazy, like, how well it's gone. So, like, obviously I'm encouraging anyone that wants to play to come and play them. If you join my Discord, I always, like, send out notifications when they're starting and stuff. And, yeah. But they're usually always at 5 p.m. Eastern time. But I don't have plans to currently run them right now, maybe tomorrow, but I'm not running them today, unfortunately.
Cool. And, well, it was good having you on here again. It's a 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern shooting time, which is about when we've been doing these podcasts. But, I was out on vacation for a bit, and you had some job stuff going on.
How was the vacation?
Vacation was awesome, man. Mexico, yeah. Nice. I think the tans faded a little bit, plus you got, like, bright green and bright red, so it's just not coming off on camera right now. But, yeah, really good time on the beach. And then I got back up to Olympia, and it was just, like, snow. So I got sick as soon as I got back, just like the weather shock, But
yeah, exactly.
It was a pretty awesome vacation. So planning my next vacation to Copenhagen. So I'm excited about that land coming up in a couple months.
That's gonna be a huge land.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you have any other final thoughts, Lucrative, before we wrap this up?
No, just obviously thanks everybody for watching. It was a good time again.
Yeah, definitely. Give us both a follow. I need to, step by step, we're making this podcast better. I need to get our little Twitter tags hanging out underneath. You guys can follow me though at xtelevision and hit up Lucrative at lucrative_TF2. Thanks again for joining me, Luke. Thanks again for everybody in the audience for joining us. And that's it for us. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out.